after step 3. So now we are entering into step 4. What is step 4? We start with D, which is develop a risk management plan. We should now apply the techniques available that are suitable for our client situation, okay, in this step 4. When we talk about suitable, what is considered as suitable? What are the considerations for the technique to be suitable? So first, considering the cost and also its effectiveness. So next, then we will consider what are the options or techniques available. Okay. So what are the techniques available that you can think of? Okay. The first one will be risk avoidance. Second one will be risk or loss control. The third one will be risk retention. And the last one will be risk transfer. Let us start with risk avoidance. So by looking at this phrase itself, it means what? Avoid the risks. Okay. For risk avoidance, okay, it can be implemented with one or it could be more than one, a combination of the following method. First will be elimination. So if let's say we can identify the source of the risk, okay, then we can remove it. Okay. For example, the risk of sport injury by participating in extreme sport. Okay. So if let's say a person can avoid participating in such sport, then the potential risk of injury from the activity can be eliminated. Okay. Or another example, the risk of employees stealing money from our cashier. So if let's say the business use only digital transaction, there is no physical cash in the cashier, so no one, the employee will not be able to steal the money from the cashier. So we eliminate the source, okay, of the risk. Okay, the second method will be substitution. So substitution means that we replace the activity or the substance with another activity or substance. One of the example, fire caused by cooking with gas stove. Okay, so this is a potential risk. But what if let's say we replace gas stove with induction stove? Then there is no fire involved. So we are substituting the gas stove with induction stove. So we are avoiding the risk. Okay, the third one will be separation. Separation means divide or place items separately when they are dangerous mixtures or combination. Okay, example of a scenario, stacking a stack of old newspaper next to a cooking stove. Okay, of course, some people like to do this because when they want to start the stove, right, they might want to use the the old newspaper to light up the stove. Okay, so for convenience, they stack a old newspaper next to the stove. So we also know that paper is an easily flammable material. So when we stack it together with next to the stove, it causes a potential hazard. So maybe we want to put the stack of old newspaper somewhere else. So we separate the two items so that it will reduce the risk of fire. And the fourth one will be rational planning. So rational planning was done by carefully study and also organization to develop a contingency plan or an alternative solution. Okay, for an example, a production business or factory may need certain essential raw material. Okay, so if let's say anything happened to the source or the suppliers of this raw material, will affect the businesses or will affect the production process of the factory. So with careful planning, the factory or the business may want to source from a few different suppliers or even a few suppliers from different regions, okay, so that if let's say once something happened to one of the supplier, the business can still get the supplies from another suppliers, okay? Or else it will cause the business loss, okay? Because it cannot continue with the production. So as we mentioned earlier, okay, risk avoidance, it may be able to be achieved by adopting only one of the above, one out of the four, and in some of the situation, it will be a combination of more than one of the method above. Okay, after we discussed about risk avoidance, so we come into second technique, which is risk or loss control. If let's say the risk cannot be avoided, so the next best thing that we can do will be control the loss. So how can we control the loss? First, preventing loss prevention, okay, preventing the loss by reduce the chance of loss. For example, injury during work, maybe a person should wear proper personal protection equipment, PPE, especially to those who are working in dangerous situation like construction workers or health workers, okay? So like, and the second method of controlling the loss will be loss reduction. So with this, we try to reduce the severity of losses if let's say the event takes place. For example, firefighting system. Does firefighting system actually eliminate the risk of fire to a property? What do we mean by firefighting system? Smoke detector, sprinkler, water hose. Do all this actually eliminate the potential risk of fire? No. Basically, they are functioning only after the event takes place. So once we have fire, the smoke detector will sound alarm, telling those people in the building to get off the building, and it will trigger the sprinklers, okay, to wet the area, and water hose will allow, if let's say they have some trained in-house firefighting team, to easily access to the water hose and put off the fire. So all this does not eliminate the risk. But is it important? They are important because they will reduce the loss rather than letting the fire to get bigger and bigger and maybe at the end burn down the whole factory or the whole property. By having all this firefighting system in place, it will actually reduce the loss caused by the fire. And the third method will be loss sharing. So as the phrase implied, reduce the amount of loss by sharing with others. One simple example will be starting a new business. So to start any new business, there is a risk. So in order to reduce the risk or control the risk, so we may invite others to join our business or our startup. So we have formed partnership in business so that the loss is shared among the partners. So, and the third technique will be risk retention. It simply means that retain the risk. Okay. Sometimes risk retention was done intentionally, and sometimes it was done unintentionally. Unintentionally means that the person or the client may not aware that the risk is there. So no plan was made. No risk management plan was made. So he or she also are actually retaining the risk. But if let's say it was done intentionally with full awareness, it seems not to be a wise move. Okay. However, in certain situations, it may be appropriate to use this technique. to use the risk retention technique, although it sounds not so wise. But if let's say, in a situation when the potential loss is bearable, means it will not have severe impact or severe financial impact on a person, then this may be a method or a technique that we can apply. For example, an insurance to cover the credit card outstanding amount if a person dies. Okay, so I personally did receive such a call from a marketer to propose to have my credit card outstanding amount being covered by insurance product, so that in the event of my if I die, then the outstanding will be paid off with the insurance. But when I judge my usual credit card usage, I think the amount compared to my others obligation, these are the loss that my family may be able to bear, okay? Or it could be easily paid off with my other assets. So I decided to retain the risk and not to do anything about it. So there are still some conditions that risk retention is a method of risk management. Or in short, risk retention also equals to self-insured. Okay? Although when we talk about insured, it's supposed to be transferred to someone, but in general, self-insured is easily understood by everyone. Okay? So what if, let's say, you don't want to retain, means you don't want to do self-insured, then we come into the fourth technique of risk management, which is risk transfer. Okay? Risk transfer, also known as risk shifting, okay? It involves transferring the risk to a third party. The transfer could be insurance-based transfer or non-insurance-based transfer. Okay? By purchasing an insurance is an act of risk transfer because we transfer the potential financial loss to an insurer. We agree to take up the risk. So the purpose is to finance those losses when they actually take place. Okay? It could happen, it may not happen. But if let's say it happened, the loss will be covered by the insurer. So insurance is easily understood. But what about non-insurance transfer? Because we have mentioned that the transfer could be non-insurance transfer. So it is normally done contractually. So an example is a contract with indemnification clause. Let's say someone engaged a web designer company to design a website for his or her company. In the engagement contract, it was stated that the web designer will indemnify the client against copyright claim. Okay, therefore, the designer may use some material, okay, write up, or it could be a photo, or it could be an image. It may have infringed some copyright. And if let's say, if the client received any copyright claim against any of their web content later on, then the web designer will have to cover the cost of defending the client and also pay the damages if found guilty. So this is an example of non-insurance transfer of risk. The risk was transferred via a contract. Okay? So we have went through the 4 techniques available to develop a risk management plan, so which is risk avoidance, risk or loss control, risk retention, and finally we have just completed discussing about risk transfer. Okay, so now we should be able to compile the whole risk management plan. So we would have listed out the risk events in all 3 classes. Can you recall the 3 classes? Property, liability, and personal. So for each of the risks we have already measured, and we already evaluate. Okay, we measure the quantum of the loss, the monetary size of the loss, and we evaluate of the possibility of happening. Okay, and we evaluate what are the resources available. Okay, then now we should be able to provide strategies to manage those risks by applying one or a combination of the 4 techniques that we have developed. Okay, so when we develop the strategies, we should first consider the available planning measures. And after we have considered all the available planning measures, then only we find the suitable options for the with suitable instrument to cover the risk. So you can refer to an example in our material, table 6-2. Okay. What is the risk event in the first row? The risk event is the event of death. So during the measurement, what is the potential financial consequences? Income loss, and also the needs of final expenses. So what are the planning measures available? It could be estate planning and also insurance planning. So what are the instruments available? For estate planning, the person can use will or trust or a combination of both. And in insurance planning, for the event of death, it could be life insurance. Okay. So we have completed the 4th step in risk management planning process, which is to develop a risk management plan. So after we have developed the plan, we need to discuss it with our clients. And clients need to understand why we need to discuss it with our client with justification and the options, and for client to make decision.